It is Visionary Communications, one of their wholly owned subsidiaries, Telecommunications, has basically done business with the Toronto County School District and already has a contract with them to provide communication services to them. In doing that, they need to establish right-of-ways, and are hoping to expand throughout the community, of course, depending upon demand. But the franchise agreement would permit them to use our right-of-ways. They've agreed to the same franchise rate as our other individuals that we have operating in the city. And so looking at that, I think that Mr. Trimbath and the Visionary Communications people, the Intech people, have gotten along well and negotiated an agreement in good faith, and we would recommend that to you.
Any questions for John about this? Okay. Thank you. I guess we can move right on to the budget calendar then, Carter.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we like to run the budget calendar by for a couple reasons. First of all, to satisfy any potential concern with regard to the construction of the budget, which will take part fairly aggressively starting in the new year, but also to try to get your blessing, if you will, for kind of a consent calendar, so that we can go ahead and schedule work sessions and so forth to deal with the various budgetary matters that we're going to need your input on. And so with your blessing, we'd like to adopt this calendar and move forward not only with the internal things that we need to do, but also the meetings and so forth that will require your input and guidance and direction, and get those work session dates established.
Questions, concerns? All good with moving forward with that? Okay.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. That's very helpful. The next item, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, is with regard to an LAD potentially that we have talked about here before, mostly in regards to a couple of the things that you asked us to do in follow-up to the first discussion that we had on this possibility. You'll remember that we're talking about the area of Jade and Arrowhead, which is just off of CY, more towards the western part of our town. Andrew here has had the opportunity to visit with those neighbors, and Mr. Henley has also had the opportunity to clarify some of the options that you have as it relates to pursuing this LAD and being an active partner in making these improvements happen. So if I could get a little time with Andrew in front of you, as well as our city attorney, to clarify some of those follow-up questions that you had, I think we're ready to take your direction if you desire to provide it.
Andrew?
Mr. Mayor, Council, we did have an opportunity to host a neighborhood meeting out there, and lo and behold, the only neighbors that showed up were the two that were in favor of the LID. So there were 2 no-shows, which were what I had heard from before, that they were not simply interested. And subsequently, John here has found a state statute that allows us to continue with the LID without requiring 50% of the adjoining property owner's approval. So I will simply turn it over to John to let you know what he found out.
Thank you very much. Mayor, Council, if you remember, basically this is a very small improvement for the city of Casper. We have here an intersection, but basically we have streets platted in all directions, though they haven't been completed in some respects, but are certainly there to be completed. But this kind of acts as a roadblock because while it's in the city, while it should have been paved, curbed, and guttered in the past, it just never was. And so you kind of have the city of Casper dead ending right there. When we were last here, we talked about the fact that while this is even a small local assessment district, improvement district, that a majority of the acreage that surrounds that could essentially veto the obligation to continue on and kind of block us from moving forward with expanding the city, or at least letting this path be paved over so that the city could expand. So going back and looking at the statutes, though, the state legislature kind of anticipated that. They said if there's an improvement that would be for streets, and this is for streets, and again, I think it's just because they want you to be able to expand and let your city grow and not have someone kind of blocking the path for expansion. But if you have an improvement for streets for 2 blocks or less, the city council can go ahead and pass a resolution saying that we want to have an LAD for this particular purpose of putting in streets, and it's in this particular area, which is an area less than 2 blocks. And we would pass that. We would send out a notice to go to all of the owners. They could still come in and protest to you and make their case in front of you. And then we would have a public hearing, and they could appear at that, as well as sending in their written protestations if they protested. And then, depending upon your view at that point, you can go ahead and say, we'd like to have this become an ordinance. We would then begin the process for completing a local assessment district, whereby we would go ahead and make the improvements and be able to levy the properties around there to pay for the improvements. Now, in this particular case, because of the negotiations that had happened before between the city and the property owners, if you remember, we were kind of making a concession to them so that we would actually go out just to get this done, because it was important to get it done and important for at least 2 of the property owners as well, to have this paved over so that they could have a good-looking business and an up-to-date looking business. And we were going to go ahead and use our equipment and our employees to kind of do the work for this small improvement. So therefore, the cost would not be so much for them. The city will bear some cost if you look at the financial implications below that. But I think in consideration that the fact that it's been basically on hold and a roadblock of sorts for about 20 or 30 years, that this may be something you want to consider.
Questions for John or for Andrew? Steve?
I guess I just want to clarify, is there 4 businesses right there that are involved, and 2 of them are refusing to have anything assessed to them, so essentially the $80,000 that would be paid by business owners are being picked up by 2 business owners, and then the other 2 businesses.
Well, actually, under this circumstance, using this exception in the statute, it would be 20, 20, 20, and 20. So it would be all 4. So the 2, they could, say, no, we're not going to do it. And say, well, we're going to do it, and pursuant to state statute, this is going to be a benefit, really a big benefit to your business and to their property interest. And so therefore, we're going to assess your property with this $20,000 assessment, which, given the construction and the amount of street that we're going to be getting and the improvement to the property, I think it would behoove them, though I don't think they may want to not have people kind of, I don't know what the motivation is.
So they would in fact be assessed?
They would in
that
fact be
amount.
assessed.
Okay. That's,
But in theory, it would increase their property value as well.
Oh, absolutely.
even though they didn't want it.
Even though they didn't want it.
And $20,000 is a pretty small amount for what this actually involves.
Actually, it's about a $250,000
That's right.
project that,
That's right.
because we're doing, gets it down. So take 250, yeah, they're getting
They're
a
getting
good
a
deal.
good, they are getting a good deal.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, as I've mentioned to you before, I really don't like the idea of having gravel streets anywhere in the limits of the city. And so what I would like to do is, over time, bring to you projects and ideas and partnerships that help us to get rid of gravel streets in the city. This is one of those, in my opinion, really innovative approaches to starting that process. And it certainly started with the property owners coming forward and saying, hey, we want to contribute to bringing a solution to bear that improves our property appropriately in the city of Casper. And so I would absolutely suggest that this is a good idea, it's a good deal, and it's certainly a good way to blend public and private partnerships to getting something very positive done.
Okay, any further questions? Or we'll get some pushback. Is everyone okay with that? Going forward with this? Okay. All right. Disability leave cap.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, you may have seen some recent communications from me with regard to this idea that we're proposing to you tonight. I do want to tell you that if you feel like you need more time to consider this, please don't think that we're trying to twist your arms into moving into something you may not be ready to do. So just know that that's obviously a very appropriate response from my request this evening. But what I would tell you is that I don't think that we're doing what we can to provide for the disability needs of our organization. As you know, particularly in light of September 2017, when we had to do some very dramatic reductions in the budget and from a benefit perspective for employees and so forth, we did cap disability leave at 200 hours. My suggestion here at this point is to increase that cap to actually 500 hours. For me, that does a couple things that I think is really important for our employee group. First of all, it does allow for a safety net to be in place that would provide for a person's need should it rise to the level of an FMLA type situation. That could be a prolonged illness. It could certainly be a maternity issue. It could be an accident that has that happened off work that required their healing period to be, in excess of 12 weeks or whatever. It doesn't make sense to me that we don't have the opportunity for employees to accrue at a level that would at least provide for that type of illness or accident or situation that would put employees in that kind of need. Furthermore, however, with a 500-hour cap, it also provides for the opportunity for the employee who should have to go through an FMLA-based need to have some semblance of a sick leave balance when they return back to work, so that they wouldn't be totally tapped out and they wouldn't be obligated to use vacation hours as a means of making up that balance. So my request to you is that we be allowed to create that cap room for our employees to accrue to a level that would accommodate an FMLA type need, as well as provide for a little bit of a balance that would remain should an employee find themselves in that situation, and provide that safety net moving forward. Now, not everybody, of course, is going to be able to get to that level right away. In fact, for those employees that are at that 200 cap level, it would probably take about 3 years to get up to that 500-hour cap level. There are some employees that have above that simply because they were able to retain their legacy hours, and they may be close to that anyway. But nonetheless, I do think it's a step in the right direction for our employees. I think it's important to allow that safety net to be accrued, and it really doesn't cost us anything to allow that kind of thing to happen until the time, of course, those hours are needed and that paycheck, if you will, is provided throughout that period of healing.
Mike and then Steve.
2 questions. So if somebody leaves and they have 500 hours of accrued sick leave, do we have to buy it out from them?
Mr. Mayor and Councilman, I am not proposing that as a virtue
Okay.
of this plan.
Okay. My second question is, how does this mesh up with the FMLA? Do they have to take family medical leave time and this at the same time, or would this in essence be in addition to FMLA?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, what this would do is it would allow for that period of time to be compensated through their sick leave balances, instead of potentially whatever they might have in sick leave and whatever they might have in vacation to make up that 480 hours that they would be losing, so to speak, or needing compensation for throughout that period of time, because FMLA provides for 12 weeks of absence, but doesn't necessarily provide for that compensation if they don't have the appropriate leave balances in place.
So these time spans run concurrently.
Correct. So while they're incurring that time during the FMLA period, they can be compensated through their sick leave balances instead of like vacation or whatever balance of sick leave they might have or whatever. So it really is a way to preserve their vacation for actual vacation time, and as well as give them adequate time to be off if they need it.
Steve?
Oh, excuse me. What was our cap prior to 17?
220.
240 was it?
I believe it was 240, 240 hours.
So all we did was cut it 40 hours then.
Well, but we also,
Well, 220.
okay, do you mind standing up, Tracy, so I
Oh,
can ask you
sure.
a couple questions,
Sure.
just to make sure I can ferret out the answers that maybe.
I believe it was either 240 or 220 hours. I could be confusing it with our vacation cap is 220 hours. So that was reduced to 200 hours to cap it at 200 hours. And we did have the disability buyback that you could, anything that was excess, then at the end of the year was
Basically
cashed
sell
out.
back to
Yeah.
the city, yeah.
Bob?
Yeah, I guess it's probably a question more for the audience. I don't remember what we have in terms of short-term disability options for our employees and long-term disability options. Do we have both of those options?
We do. Long-term disability is a benefit that the city provides for all employees. Short-term disability is something that is optional, and employees would have to elect that during our open enrollment period.
So it's
And they would
something
have to pay
needs-
for it on their own.
Yeah, I don't, what's the lag time, I guess, if you will, for LTD? 90 days? or-
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
That's usually what it is. Kristen?
When you said buyback, so when we cut it from 240 to 200, did we essentially potentially pay people for the difference that they were quote unquote losing? Or was this a situation of like maybe they had been grandfathered?
Tracy, if I remember correctly, Mr. Mayor, nobody really lost hours.
Okay.
It was in terms of what they could accrue
Yeah.
from that point forward. So let's say we
Oh,
had
okay.
someone who had 150 hours.
Yeah.
Instead of being able to accrue 240 and then, or 300 and selling back to 240, they could just simply accrue to 200 and their accrual was effectively stopped at that point.
So if they were at 240 at the time this was implemented, were they just grandfathered in at 240?
It was set at 200, and then that excess time would be available should they have a need to use it.
Okay.
So they retained the hours.
Okay, sorry, just when you use the words buyback, it just made me envision that we do get in as always, another cycle of hurt, and then it becomes this thing of, okay, well, we allowed them to 500, that's really not sustainable any longer, now we need to pull it back, and I just didn't want there to be this like huge potential like financial liability sitting out there. Okay.
So I guess to go on the back of that, when they do leave though, they still do, if they have time accrued in disability, do they get paid for that?
No,
They do.
Yeah.
that stopped in that same time.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Go ahead, Steve.
We're all trying to understand all of this. The FMLA? Now that does not, that time, if you took the full 12 weeks, is it? If you took that full 12 weeks off, that does not count and would not count towards long-term disability though, would it?
There are actually two.
Because Bob was asking about long-term disability and when it would kick in. Granted, if I go out and drive off a cliff and I'm in the hospital for
Yeah.
3 months, then, or 4 months I should say, then long-term disability starts paying. But on the family leave,
It could, you could have that benefit kick in even when you're on family medical leave.
Even
If you're
if-
away from work, then there's different benefits that can come into play and
if you're completely
coincide.
healthy and just choosing to stay home, would long-term disability,
It has to be certified, and all of those benefits have to be certified by medical professionals saying that you're not able to be at work.
okay, medically speaking.
Yes.
But the FMLA is that you can be perfectly healthy and your baby can be perfectly healthy, but you still are allowed to take the 12 weeks off.
Correct.
But without pay unless there is something in there to get you paid.
Yes. Yes.
Preserves your job, basically.
Yes, basically, just like military service did back in the 60s, if you got
Right.
drafted.
So it could be
You had
paid
the
or
right to have a
unpaid.
job back.
Yes, it's that job protection for that 12
Okay.
weeks, up to 12
But
weeks.
where this would do is you could use your sick leave, though, is what you're saying, even if you're not sick, to stay home for those 12 weeks and still get paid.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, all I'm really suggesting is that a balance be allowed to be developed
Sure.
that would provide for someone's pay if they should need to take FMLA kind of leave.
Okay.
And that could be for a variety of reasons. Yep.
But if what I'm getting at is, though, is they could still draw their pay, even if they get out of the hospital in 3 days and they're all perfectly healthy, you would still allow the 500 hours that they've accrued to be used towards payment for their time off.
You still need a doctor's signature.
Yeah.
Well, you still need a medically approved reason to be on FMLA.
Oh, okay.
I mean, but that
Okay.
is not changed by what I'm proposing.
Okay.
That's just the
I just,
Fairly
it's
Standards
been too
Act.
long since we had kids. and-
coming in, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm just asking, obviously, there's a lot of questions, and as you mentioned before, can we put this on next Tuesday, have
No, not next
information,
Tuesday.
or not next Tuesday? When we come back with more information, because you mentioned it at the beginning, we're running out of time and we still got another one, so I'm just asking if everybody's okay with that. Or if we just wanna say,
If there's one person that's not ready, I guess we can talk about it again. So, you got all your questions
Yeah.
answered? But you still have questions, Ken? that you
no,
wanna-
I don't.
Does anybody have any leftover concerns about all of this? It really is just a benefit for those extreme situations that happen rarely, where someone just needs to have that ability to get paid for a longer period of time. Are we all okay? All right. Okay.
Thank you.
Do we have time to do the one-time payment?
I think so.
Okay.
Let me take a stab at it though, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor. Some of you may have heard complaints for this particular month, wherein we are transitioning now to the state's health plan. And accordingly, the state's health plan requires that the employees pay a premium in the month prior to their actually joining. And so that means for December, the state will be taking a deduction, and for the month of December, the city will be taking its final deduction. And so what I'm suggesting is that in order to, assuage those concerns and provide some funding that would accommodate that, I'm proposing that we provide the employees a one-time payment, if you will, of $250 after taxes to help offset those concerns. I would tell you that $250 would absolutely meet that obligation regardless of what plans out there, and then some. And I'm here to tell you that with regard to what we think those costs are going to incur, I don't mind the employees getting that margin of positive cash flow, if you will, for the month of December.
And our budgetary situation is such that we're ahead of projections and you can afford it.
That's my opinion. Yeah, that's my opinion.
Very quick question. Are our part-time employees allowed to participate in either one of those plans?
Yes.
They
They're
are.
eligible depending on the hours that they work.
What I'm getting at is, and the reason I asked that is your memo stated only full-time employees. Actually, shouldn't this be for any of those that are participating in the health plan?
Because they all have premiums.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Kathy, that could be correct. The difference would be that part-time employees don't have those city deductions because part-time employees are now eligible for benefits in the current plan that the city has.
Oh, that's what I was asking. I thought that's what you said that they were. Okay. No, if they're not eligible for this plan, then no, I have no problem with that. Okay.
I'm sorry,
I
that was for the
misunderstood.
state plan, so
Okay.
some of them have enrolled for the state plan and will see that first deduction in the month of December. But
but
Okay.
not from the city.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
sorry.
Very good
I
then.
missed
I'm
what you were saying.
I'm okay with where you came from.
If anybody has any serious concerns about the agenda, we can talk about that now. Is there any problems we need to discuss, Kristen?
I was just gonna say really briefly, and I know I always say it when we do whatever tax removed bonuses, I just have to toss this in there. It is somewhat not proportional, because obviously if my federal withholding is higher than your federal withholding, I'm technically receiving more of a benefit. It's not a big deal, and when you're talking $250, it's marginal, but when you're talking $250 for hundreds of employees, it's not necessarily marginal, but I'm supported. I just always want to point that out, that when we're paying people's federal taxes, we are giving them unproportional benefits.
We usually have done after tax when we've done any kind of bonuses.
Yeah, no, I brought it up last time too, but I don't probably always bring it up.
Everybody ready to go? All right. Okay. I now call the December 17, 2019 regular council meeting to order. Would council members, the chair would entertain a motion to, by minute action, excuse the absence of Vice Mayor Johnson.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Pacheco, seconded by Councilman Friel. Please cast your vote, and please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, motion passed.
Thank you. Just a reminder, the council meetings are also televised and can be viewed on cable channel 192. I'd like to invite Mr. Bob King to come up, and he would like to share some information on the Pledge of Allegiance. And when you're through, sir, we'll have you come up here. Well, actually, why don't we have the kids join you after you're done at the podium, okay?
Thank you, and yes, I'll follow that. And thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. You start out all of your meetings with an invitation for somebody to help you with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm taking you up on that. And what I thought I would do, and I'll keep it as brief as I can, I'm going to present you with a brief history as to how the Pledge of Allegiance came about and why it is what it is today. It's not in its original form. The pledge, as we are familiar with it, was coined in 1892 by a Baptist minister, Francis Bellamy of New York, as part of a movement to introduce the flag into the schools, the public school systems. This was at a time when the generation of kids who were in the school system were at least a generation away from the Civil War. In addition to that, there was a lot of families moving to the United States, immigrating to the United States around this time, that this was a new country for them. So the flag was deemed to be an important a symbol of our country. And in addition to that, it was 400 years from when Christopher Columbus sailed to the Americas. And in 1892, the United States flag had 44 stars, and if you're familiar with Wyoming's history, that 44th star was put on in 1890, which was the last one of those 44 stars until the mid-20s, when we became 48 states. And the original Pledge of Allegiance, a salute went with it, where rather than having your hand over your heart, you actually had your arm extended towards the flag, and that stayed with it for several years afterwards. In 1923, a national flag conference got looking at the pledge and wanted to change it. We are now at 48 states, and they put into place changed the language, and rather than the original pledge, which was, I should have read that to you. The original pledge read, "I pledge allegiance to my flag and the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all." And then in 1923, the National Flag Conference changed the wording and added, instead, inserted the words, the flag of the United States of America. So the pledge read, "I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all." And this stayed with this language until 1942, and the United States Congress officially recognized the pledge at that time as part of the language of the United States that would go with it, and it was a congressional directive that would be our pledge. However, they also changed, rather than the salute that was traditional with it up till that time, changed it to where you had your hand over your heart, and that was due in part to the symbolism of the Nazi party, which, as we all know, had the extended arm, and that was viewed as not a patriotic move by several nations in the world, and in the United States especially. So at that time, the motion was to place your hand over your heart during the complete reading of the pledge. In the 1950s, early 1950s, some institutions started adding on their own one nation under God. And Congress picked up on that at President Eisenhower's directive or encouragement that in order to differentiate the United States from what at that time was viewed as the atheistic Soviet Union, the encouragement was to add the phrase, "one nation under God." And Congress went along with that, was in agreement with it. And actually the Knights of Columbus was one of the earliest groups in the very early 50s to insert that in at their own initiative. But the phrase "one nation under God" was put into the pledge at that time. And this is where I would take a note, and I'm glad to see all the kids here. If you'll note, the official version of the pledge, there is no comma after nation. It reads, "I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all." And the first time I was made aware of this was back in the early 80s. For those of you who remember Dr. Jacob Daly, he instructed us at a breakfast meeting about that phrase, and he was very stern about it, as if you know Dr. Daly. So with that, I'll turn it back to you to perhaps invite your guests up, and we could all say this pledge.
Well, thank you for that review and all that information, things I was not aware of. So, well, I think the way I'd like to do this is we do have some special guests here this evening. It's the youth leadership group from the Boys and Girls Club with Mr. Zach Powell as their leader. And what I'd like to do is invite the kids up to help us say the pledge, and then I think you have some comments that the kids have prepared, some questions for us, and we'll do that during the public comment period, so we can do that after the pledge. So why don't you guys come on up? I'm sorry?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
One other thing is, Mr. King had alluded to when it went from 44 to 48 in 1959 is when it went to 50 when Alaska and Hawaii joined the Union as far as the flags, as the stars on the flag.
I'm a centennial baby, so it's easy for me.
Well, let's all face the flag, hands on your heart, and we'll all start together.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, guys. So before we get to the public comment period, we always go through our minutes and our budget, but we will be there in just a few minutes, okay? So the chair would entertain a motion to, by minute action, approve the minutes of the December 3rd, 2019 regular council meeting as published in the Casper Star Tribune on December 13th, 2019.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Hopkins, seconded by Councilman Bates. Any amendments to those minutes? Please cast your vote, and please record the vote.
All members voting aye, motion passed.
The chair would entertain a motion to approve by minute action the minutes of the December 10, 2019 special council meeting as published in the Casper Star Tribune on December 16, 2019.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Lutz, seconded by Councilman Bates. Any amendments to those minutes? Please cast your vote, and please record the vote.
All members voting aye, motion passed.
Thank you. Chair would entertain a motion to approve by minute action the minutes of the December 10, 2019 executive session.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Cathy, seconded by Councilman Pacheco. Any amendments to those minutes? Please cast your vote, and please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, motion passed.
The chair would entertain a motion to approve by minute action the December 17, 2019 bills and claims as audited by City Manager Napier.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Hopkins, seconded by Councilman Friel. Any abstentions? Please cast your vote, and please record the vote. Did we all get those up?
With all members voting aye, motion passed.
Well, hit the wrong one.
Or not.
Maybe.
How many years have you been doing this now?
Takes practice.
Now is the time we invite anyone in the audience who wishes to speak with the council to come forward. As stated on the first page of the agenda, we ask the following. Please state your name and your address. Please direct your questions to me as mayor. Please no personal attacks on staff or council. Questions posed by speakers may or may not be responded to by council members, and presentations are limited to 5 minutes. So, who would like to come forward and speak to council? Would you like to come forward, sir? We'll give you guys just a minute, okay? Good evening, sir.
Honorable Charles Powell and council members. I am Max Martinez, and I reside in Ward 1 at 761 West 5th Street, Casper, Wyoming. The members of the council that represent me are Mr. Robert Hopkins, Mr. Mike Huber, and Ms. Kristen Lutz. Hopefully this is correct. Please excuse me for reading my presentation, as I request assistance from the Casper City Council. Due to illness, my mind has been dulled, and it is a struggle to stay mentally focused. Getting to my request, it developed in the following way. I have plans to build an ADA-compliant garage. Need for the garage and home modification is because I am afflicted with ALS. Excuse me. You don't know here. While in conversation with a friend about setback regulations for the front of the garage, he suggested that I petition the city of Casper for a variance. The garage must measure 25 feet from the property line. I went to the planning and zoning office with a plot plan requesting a setback of 20 feet. 20 feet is the minimum length for a parking space in the city of Casper. I was told that such a request has never been granted in over 20 years. If I paid $750 for a board view, I was guaranteed that it would be wasting my money and setback would not be approved. The code officer, enforcement officer visited my home, but officer said she could not approve the work. She did not offer any information, but did answer my questions. One question I asked was, quote, will this affect any person or persons negatively, close quote. She answered no. I believe this was nothing more than an opinion, but worth noting. After thinking about my conundrum, I thought maybe I would approach Senator John Barrasso. He is a military liaison, but in 2 recent scheduled meetings, he was a no-show. I am a Vietnam era veteran. Excuse me. I'm a life member of the VW 9439, an honorably discharged veteran. I served in Southeast Asia during the conflict, assigned to Mount Tapo in the jungles of northern Thailand. The Veterans Administration has deemed me 100% disabled. My next place in seeking assistance was the White House. And I have a letter from President Trump right here that I would like to show you.
Would you like us to pass that around, sir, so council members can see that?
The Veterans Administration has deemed me 100% disabled. My next place in seeking assistance was the White House. On October 15th, I emailed a message to President Trump explaining my problem. His staff responded on October 30th, 2019, that my correspondence has been reviewed and it would be forwarded to the appropriate federal agency for further action. On November 8th, 2019, I received a letter from the Department of Veteran Affairs in Glendale, Colorado. They referred me to the Protection and Advocacy System of the state of Wyoming. I called their office, they listened to my request, and told me they would go to committee and decide if they would represent me. They responded that they would start gathering information upon my signing a permission form. A reason for denial would be, if we do this for you, then we'll have to do it for everybody. In my case, my building lot is on a corner, but not a 90-degree corner, and I have a plot plan right here. I'm 75 years old, and my spouse is 66. Two old couples just getting along as best we can. In recapitulation, what I'm asking for is for a variance of 5 feet as I place my garage on my property, that I can be closer to my entrance door, that the grade will be easier to establish with, I think the code is 1 inch per foot. And I guess that's it in a nutshell.
Questions for
Very
Mr.
much.
Martinez? Did I pronounce your name correctly?
My name is Max A. Martinez.
Yes. Questions for Mr. Martinez? Sir, you haven't applied for the permit yet then, and they told you it would be a waste of money to do so, is that?
I went to Mr. Collins and I took the plot plan. He said it will never pass, even if I paid the money. And anyway, I have a friend in city government who advised me to come here.
Okay. Because normally we would go to the Planning and Zoning Commission and see if they approved it, and then we would hear it if they denied. But the application would have to be submitted first. So I don't know, does anybody recall if we have any precedent on a variance like this? I do not. What would you advise, Mr. City Manager? The gentleman says he doesn't want to pay the fee because he's been told it won't be approved. Is there any precedent for planning and zoning to consider the specifics of a case like this?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the difficulty that you have right now is that I wouldn't believe that ordinance would allow you to decide on this matter without the issue first going through the Planning Commission.
Right.
And so it probably would be inappropriate as well for council to say, hey, go ahead and go through that process and bring it to us and we'll help you out, you know, because I don't think you have that, I don't think you should be in that spot. However, I would suggest that if Mr. Martinez would like to have the audience with you that he seeks, then indeed it would be requisite for him to go through the process with the Planning Commission, understanding that if indeed the Planning Commission doesn't see their way through to being able to grant a variance, the next step would certainly be to come to the council. And as you all know, the council has that opportunity to support or overturn a recommendation from the Planning Commission that would be potentially obviously adverse to what Mr. Martinez is asking for.
But I assume we would ask our staff to be frank with a potential applicant regarding their chances to avoid paying a fee when there's little chance of it being approved.
And Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I think that's what Mr. Martinez has encountered so far with regard to his contemplation of going through this process.
Councilman Bates, do you have?
If I may, Craig Collins is here and he can maybe help address some of this if you don't mind.
Mr. Collins? Sir, if you could just let him have the microphone for a second.
I don't want to address the specifics, but Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to say that the appeal would not come to this body, it would go to district court. That's the only remedy. So I don't want to give him the false hope that this body could do anything. It's just planning commission or court, that's it.
Why would that be? I'm curious.
That's the way the ordinance reads, Mr. Mayor.
I was not aware of that. Okay, and we really have no mechanism to help someone who struggles to pay a fee. It's expected. Sir, I think you're going to have to go to Planning and Zoning Commission and make your application. It doesn't sound like it's under our purview.
Thank you very much.
And I apologize that we can't help you with this, but hopefully you can get a satisfactory answer. And thank you for sharing that information with us.
I'll wait for my paperwork as it comes.
Okay. I'm going to ask you guys to wait just a little longer and see if there's anyone else that wishes to speak this evening. Anyone else here to speak to us? Good evening, Mr. Lamont.
Mayor, I owe you an apology. I forgot to thank you. You got carried away last time and you acknowledged me coming back, and I appreciate that. Mike, it's good to see you. That suntan, that's not fair. It's cold on that mountain. You got to jump on things. So obviously I'm pretty informal here. So I'm going to ask Carter to help me out to pass these out, and I've got one for yourself too, okay? So I'm asking you tonight, don't shoot the messenger, and I'm going to get done before 5 minutes, Charlie. Thanks for putting up with me last meeting. So life's been a little tough here for the last 33 years for this old kid. And I opened this up. There's my new calling card, okay? I play the part pretty well on him. So my father did too for about, from after World War II forward. And we work both sides of the street. But I have a new Facebook site that most of you are probably aware of called Tracy J. Lamont. That was my political site, Tracy John Lamont, Natrona County Watchdog Committee Chairman of the FCID, which stands for Federal Citizen, Volunteer Citizen, of 33 years here, of the Intelligence Division of the DOJ. And you can go to the bank on that, okay? I happen to have my badge on tonight, okay? So I make no secrets about it. Everything I do is transparent. And I think all of you need to make your transparency on the votes for the mayor. From this point forward, I don't care what you've done before now. But I'm going to walk you through my packet here real fast. I'm just going to read the headings on it, but I've been before you guys before. That one, not so much you, and Ray knows, but I don't harbor any malice here. But sometimes ignorance is bliss, okay? And I don't mean that to be derogatory, because I'm that way myself. So I open up here, protection of officers and employees of the United States, and that includes its affiliates and associates. And I've been one for 33 years. So I'm protected just like that under, Section 8, or, the number 8 of Code 1114. Mike, you know these. And going to the next, conspiracy and murder. I've been a victim of that. Thank God they didn't carry it out. The only mistake they didn't make was pull the trigger. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here tonight. So the next is attempt to commit murder or manslaughter. Didn't happen. Next is aiding and abetting, and that's where you guys really need to pay attention here, okay? I've withheld all I'm going to withhold, okay? I've been a victim now for 22 years. I've been brutalized to the max. I lost my hearing. Carter knows this. You guys are going to be paying for my hearing. We talked about this before. And my teeth. I opened up my mouth. I'll tell you how many of them have fallen out from that stun grenade that man right there threw in my face, okay? Moving past that. Okay, I promised my constituents in the back of the room, they're here to protect me tonight. I don't think you've ever seen 4 armed guards in the council chambers before. Thank you for all your work, Carter. I have a lot of good friends. Those 60 people that were from the FOP, thank you, Liz. She was brave enough to get all them rounded up over to the old K-Larks building, and they all left on a bus from the federal government with bars on the windows. I don't know what time of night that took place, but that took place while I was in hiding at the state hospital. I play wingnut pretty well. I got shot at by a deputy sheriff and one other fellow, and I know who they are, because I'm guarded from the eyes in the sky and the bugs in the wall. Thermal imagery works pretty well. Thank God I'm with the feds. There are no secrets. I'm about done, Charlie. So I got shot at end of last February, first part of March, I guess end of March. I told you this the last go around. I'm almost done.
Okay.
My roommate was a U.S. attorney, a legitimate one, not the man that worked with you that works for him. That's the coordinator of law enforcement down at the U.S. Attorney's Office. They're in deep trouble, Steve. Obstruction of justice, the last thing. Danger to self, that ain't me. Danger to others and danger to me, that's him. So what I want you guys to email me via Steve Schultz, who should have been the chief here, okay? But that's all right. He's got a good job offer somewhere else. Along with one of his constituents to save my life, walked me out of this courthouse with a 30-yard salute on both sides of the 60 replacements for the boys from the FOP. I hate to, don't shoot the messenger, please. I'm not done. So just send me the code of ethics that you ran Hedquist off of here with. And Bob, I am for real. You know that. So do you, Steve. So do you. So do you. You guys, we need more new faces. Steve, I'm calling for your resignation and dignity. I could ask these guys to just come up and walk you out that door and put your coat on. But I'm not going to do that tonight. But I'm asking for your resignation as this council's board member on the Visit Casper too. Thank you for all your time, ladies and gentlemen. I am for real, and I don't want to sue the city. I'll close with this. You don't need to be paid nothing for this job. I've been on call for 33 years, 24/7, 365, and Bob will tell you I was even doing that before when I met him at Shirley Basin. You know how much I've been compensated for all this? Zero. And if I asked for people to stand up in this room that are on my ball team, you'd be shocked. Thank you for the extra time. Okay? I wear that badge proudly. Thank you.
Take care, Mr. Lamont. Is anyone else here to speak to council before we have the kids come up? I think you guys are on. We need some good advice on how to run the city, and I bet you guys can help us. Let's be sure the microphone is low enough. Thank you, John.
Hi, my name is Michaela Netzelman, and I have a...
Could we get your address, please?
I don't know it.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Casper.
I think that we should plant more trees around the city.
Okay. Are there places where you think there's an absence of trees? Where you've seen too many open spaces? You just like trees. Well, fair enough. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brendan Bradley, 562 East End, Wyoming. I got a question. Why do you guys thought of making Casper?
Say that one more time.
Why do you guys think of making Casper?
I didn't hear him.
I don't understand.
Why? Huh? How did Casper become a city?
Oh, okay. Well, that's a good question. There's a river here. It's here because of the river. And when it actually became a city, I don't know. When Casper became incorporated, I think like 1892, would that be a good, I wish Mr. King was still here, he'd know. Sometime in the late 1890s.
Mr. Mayor, I think it was 1889.
1889? There you have it. That was a long time ago.
Mayor?
Councilman Bates.
If you want to also know, I encourage you to go to Fort Casper. They have a whole section on how when Casper became a city and how it became and all of that. So I highly encourage you, go to Fort Casper and read, and they'll be able to direct you on everything about it.
Thank you. Good advice. Good evening.
My name is Serenity Dupree, and my address is 805 St. Mary. And I have one question for you. What made you decide to become city councilman?
Anybody care to answer that? No volunteers? Councilman Pacheco is going to tell you.
Fame and money. No. No, just kidding. So the real reason I got involved in it, and I think a lot of people that got involved on here, and I don't want to speak for them, is because I wanted to make my community better. And I wanted to do that because I have kids, and they're in middle school and high school, but they were much younger when I got on council, about 5 years ago. And I really wanted it to be a place that they could be proud of, but a place that was good. And so when you're growing up, that it can be a place that's really cool, because I like working with young people. And so that gives me an opportunity to make this place a town that we can be proud of, but something that can be really cool for us. So that's why I ran.
Councilman Huber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that Councilman Pacheco absolutely said what I think all of us would say, but also, if you look at all those pictures and all those people on the wall there that have served over the years, I think that's why they all served too. And because, you know, it really is something that you do because you want to try to make things a little bit better. And I think that heritage over there, they all tried their best when they were here. And hopefully sometime in a few years, you'll be sitting up here and then you can take a swing at it, okay?
And you should think about that. I guess I would also add that we all of us as citizens, we rely upon the city to take care of things that we all take for granted, like having clean water and having someone pick up our trash and having good roads to ride on, and of course having a police department here to keep us safe, and our fire department. In our form of government, the only way that you can have those things is if there's people like us who will sit up here and make these decisions. And so someone has to do that. And so we've all made the decision that we're willing to do that. And so that's really a big part of the motivation and to try to make the community better in the process. But a very good question. And you all should consider doing something like this someday. I bet you'd all do great. But thank you for your question. Anybody else want to comment? Councilman Bates.
Miss Serenity, one of the biggest reasons why I ran is to hear what you guys have to say. And as Councilman Pacheco said, to hopefully make a difference, as in, you guys want more trees? Let's see what we can do for you to make that happen. Last week we had Boys and Girls Club here that made several comments about Hogadon and what else was it? Sorry, I'm looking. The ice arena, homeless services, and they gave us a bunch of ideas, and we're hoping that we can meet those because of you and all the citizens of Casper. Thank you.
That was the Girls Club, right? Wasn't it? Yeah, the Girl Scouts, yeah, sorry. Yeah. Yep. Councilman Cathy.
I am probably one of the more conservative people on the council, and I got on council because I felt like government was starting to grow too big and get into people and private businesses' lives too much, and I feel like there needs to be a balance between government and private, and government can't serve and solve all of your problems. People have to take personal responsibility. And so I was elected the first time back in 2012 because of my stance for private business. And this time I filled a vacancy, and the other members that you see here decided to choose me, that they were willing to put up with me. But basically, it becomes to political ideologies as well as to whether you believe in big government or smaller government.
Good question. Anybody else want to come forward and ask a question?
We got one more volunteer.
Good evening.
I'm Lukajo Yamaguchi. 1723, I think. Baroka Trail, Bernine. I feel like we should have people pick up trash because there's like a lot of trash in the city. I feel like we should have more people pick up trash and everything like that.
Okay, having a clean city is important. Any questions for this young lady? Thank you, that's a good comment. It would really help if people would put all their trash in bags before they put it in the trash bin, because then when the trash bin blows over, trash is everywhere. But if people would put it in bags, we wouldn't have that problem. So, but you're right, we could all do more to clean up the city. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. I want to salute you guys for coming. Some of you may not know that these kids are learning all about the Cowboy Code of Ethics over at the Boys and Girls Club, and that's a big part of what they're doing. And this is the youth leadership group. And so these are the leaders over at the Boys and Girls Club trying to show by their example how to do things the right way to all the rest of the kids who go to the Boys and Girls Club. So you guys have a very important job in doing that. And we salute you for your efforts and thank you for coming here. You guys are our future leaders.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to thank them as well, because it takes a lot of courage at the age of you folks to stand up there at that microphone and ask us questions. I mean, I imagine you were all rather shaky and concerned, but I appreciate your courage, and that's what doing the right thing overcomes your fears, and that is courage. So thank you again for coming and being willing to stand up there. That is great.
And we're always looking for suggestions, so don't be bashful. So thank you guys again for coming. Is anyone else here to speak to council this evening? Okay. Let's please read the consent agenda title.
Establishing January 7th, 2020 as a public hearing date for the consideration of an amendment to the Casper Municipal Code pertaining to the Metro Road speed zone.
The chair would entertain a motion to, by minute action, establish the public hearing date just read.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councilman Huber, or Councilman Pacheco, seconded by Councilman Kathy. Sure. Is that good enough? Okay, didn't quite catch that one. Please cast your vote, and please record the vote.
All members voting aye, motion passed.
I now declare the public hearing open for the consideration of the submission of a Wyoming Business Council grant for the First Street Gateway project. Mr. City Attorney, do you have exhibits?
Thank you, Your Honor. We have two exhibits. Exhibit number 1, correspondence from Jolene Martinez to J. Carter Napier, dated December 3, 2019. And exhibit number 2, affidavit of publication, is published in the Casper Star Tribune, dated December 9, 2019.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Staff is preparing an application to the Wyoming Business Council for a $500,000 grant application with regard to the project that we are exhibiting here soon on your screen. The total project cost will be in the neighborhood of $786,000, and so as you can imagine, by virtue of this grant potentially coming together, we will have the majority of it covered. We do anticipate receiving other grants as well for the balance of that project cost, so that indeed city dollars and dollars from city's coffers will hopefully not have to be exposed, if you will, with regard to the completion of this project. We are hopeful that the project would include pathway along the riverfront from First Street to basically the BNSF Railroad Bridge, which would hopefully include features like a boat ramp and a parking lot for those who want to access that ramp. Pathway, of course, would be a major feature of this project, and we're hoping that lighting and benches and so forth would be included as well.
Thank you. Council will now listen to public comment, and public hearing comments are again limited to 5 minutes. Is anyone here to speak on this grant application this evening? Anyone here to speak in favor? Excuse me. Is anyone here to speak in opposition to this grant submission? Please approach the lectern. There being no one to speak on this matter, I now declare the public hearing closed. The chair would entertain a motion to, by resolution, authorize the grant submission.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Hopkins, seconded by Councilman Bates. Discussion. I think this will be a great thing for the city of Casper. For those of you who haven't been following this, we're very interested in improving the view that people, what people see when they come into Casper from our west end, and also to create a very beautiful amenity for our citizens right along the river. And as we all know, Casper's slowly coming to realize what a gem the North Platte River is that has long been overlooked and underutilized. And this is a major step forward to us if we can get this grant application approved. So any other discussion? Amendments? Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
All members voting aye, motion passed.
Thank you. I now declare the public hearing open for the consideration of the transfer of ownership of retail liquor license number 36. Mr. City Attorney, do you have exhibits?
Thank you, Your Honor. We have 5 exhibits tonight. Exhibit number 1, correspondence from Fleur Tremmel to J. Carter Napier, dated December 5, 2019. Exhibit number 2, affidavit of publication, is published in the Casper Star Tribune, dated December 9, 2019. Exhibit number 3, affidavit of website publication, is published on the City of Casper website, dated December 5, 2019. Exhibit number 4, affidavit of notice of conspicuous posting pursuant to Wyoming Statute 12-4-104A, as posted at 410 South Ash Street, dated December 5, 2019, and exhibit number 5, liquor license application filed November 14, 2019.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the ownership of this particular business is consolidating to 2 people, and pursuant to that action, it is appropriate that a transfer be considered among the council in order to recognize that new ownership.
Thank you. At this time, I would ask, council will now listen to public comment, and again, public comments are limited to 5 minutes, and at this time, I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in favor of the transfer of ownership to please approach the lectern. Good evening, sir.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, my name is John Griffith, 915 South Lincoln. My wife and I have been owners of Urban Bottle that operates under this liquor license since inception, and have gone through a lot since we've started, and this transfer is actually just consolidating that ownership down to my wife and myself as the sole operators of that business. We look forward to continuing to see what happens downtown and to see the growth downtown and the vibrancy continue there. So I would entertain any questions or be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Questions for Mr. Griffith? We appreciate your confidence in our downtown, Mr. Griffith, and all you have contributed.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else to speak in favor of this transfer of license? Anyone here to speak in opposition to the license transfer? There being no others to speak on this matter, I now declare the public hearing closed. The chair would entertain a motion to, by minute action, authorize the transfer of ownership of retail liquor license number 36.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Friel, seconded by Councilwoman Lutz. Any discussion on this matter? Any amendments? Please cast your vote, and please record the vote.
All members voting aye, motion passed.
I now declare the public hearing open for the consideration of the issuance of bar and grill liquor license number 12. Mr. City Attorney, do you have exhibits?
Again, we have 5 exhibits, Your Honor. Exhibit number 1, correspondence from Fleur Trummel to J. Carter Napier, dated December 5, 2019. Exhibit number 2, affidavit of publication, is published in the Casper Star Tribune, dated December 9, 2019. Exhibit number 3, affidavit of website publication, is published on the City of Casper website, dated December 5, 2019. Exhibit number 4, affidavit of notice of a conspicuous posting pursuant to Wyoming Statute 12-4-104A, as posted at 530 East 2nd Street, Suite 1, dated December 5, 2019. And exhibit number 5, liquor license application, filed November 15, 2019.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we have 2 licenses here that we are considering this evening as it relates to the bar and grill category of licenses available for you to distribute. The first one, of course, is with regard to the Qdoba on the east side of the community, and then, of course, the next one will be with regard to the bar and grill license on the west side, which will be the item consecutive to this one. Council would want to note that indeed with the issuance of these 2 licenses, which staff would be in concurrence with, council will have 1 more to distribute, given the informal agreement that you've made with the Johnson Restaurant Group a number of weeks ago, relating to 2 others as well.
Thank you. Council will now listen to public comment, and again, public comments are limited to 5 minutes. At this time, I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in favor of bar and grill license number 12 to please approach the lectern. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. My name is Nick Hill, address 4371 Gosfield, Casper 82609. The plan for Qdoba on the east side and the west side's an underserved area, and I think it'll be a very nice added bonus to the west side. The east side is not necessarily underserved, but 2 of the same concepts in town. You can grab a cocktail, get some cuisine, Qdoba, Mexican eats, etc. Go catch a movie. It's not necessarily underserved, but it's a much needed Mexican restaurant with adult beverages, if you will. So I'm asking, with my background, I've trained many bartenders. I've been a tip certified gentleman too. I've worked in Las Vegas, have a lot of extensive background in restaurants, bars, and nightclubs. I am very, very familiar with making sure that there's the patrons are not leaving the venue intoxicated. We're not a place that's going to serve several drinks to people. We just want to add an adult beverage, give you a great experience at Qdoba, whether you're on the east side or the west side. And I want to be able to produce that. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Questions for Mr. Hill? Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Apparently not. So thank you for your confidence in our community.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Is anyone else here to speak in favor of bar and grill license number 12? There being no one else to speak in favor, is anyone here to speak in opposition to granting this license? There being no others to speak for or against, I now declare this matter closed. The chair would entertain a motion to, by minute action, authorize bar and grill liquor license number 12.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Pacheco, seconded by Councilman Huber. Discussion.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Friel.
I'll be abstaining from this vote and the next one.
And I agree that the west side has been underserved, and so anything we can add as far as options for our community on the west side, I'm very much in favor of. So, any other discussion? Any amendments? Please cast your vote. And please record the vote.
With the abstention of Councilmember Friel noted, motion passed.
I now declare the public hearing open for the consideration of issuance of bar and grill license number 13. Mr. City Attorney?
Thank you, Mayor. 5 exhibits. Exhibit number 1, correspondence from Fleur Trummel to J. Carter Napier dated December 5, 2019. Exhibit number 2, affidavit of publication is published in the Casper Star Tribune dated December 9, 2019. Exhibit number 3, affidavit of website publication is published on the City of Casper website dated December 5, 2019. Exhibit number 4, affidavit of notice of conspicuous posting pursuant to Wyoming Statute 12-4-104A is posted at 4009 CY Avenue dated December 5, 2019. And exhibit number 5, liquor license application filed November 15, 2019.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager?
Nothing further, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. And just to go through the formalities, we will again allow public comment on this. Is anyone here to speak in favor of Bar and Grill license number 13? If so, please approach the lectern. Anyone here to speak in opposition to Bar and Grill license number 13? There being no one to speak for or against, I now declare this public hearing closed. Chair would entertain a motion to, by minute action, authorize Bar and Grill liquor license number 13.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Huber, seconded by Councilman Bates. Any discussion amongst council?
Mr. Mayor, now is the time to say that the west side is...
I realized as I was saying that I had that reversed, but so be it. First mistake I've ever made from this chair. So, any discussion? Any amendments? Please cast your vote, and please record the vote. You all didn't have to laugh quite so hard at that.
With the abstention of Councilmember Friel noted, motion passed.
We don't remember the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please read the ordinance on third reading by title only.
An ordinance approving a plat, subdivision agreement, and zone change, creating the Dewald Divide Addition subdivision.
Chair would entertain a motion to approve on third reading the ordinance just read.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Hopkins, seconded by Councilman Bates. And again, we allow public comment in all 3 readings. Is anyone here to speak this evening on this matter? Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mayor Powell, Councilman. I'm David Dewald, and I'm the petitioner for this addition. And so I'm here to, first of all, answer any questions that anybody may have. And second of all, to reiterate what we talked about at the last meeting 2 weeks ago, which is the section 6 on the subdivision agreement. And it's my understanding that this won't pass unless I sign this, and I'm willing to sign this as long as we take out section 6.
If you, sir, if you look ahead on the agenda, I believe that's on the agenda that he has, is it not? If you look ahead, I think you'll see that we're poised to do that. Is that not on the agenda that he has?
I think it's just on our script.
Oh, I'm sorry. If you'll be patient with us, sir, I think we're going to solve that problem for you.
Okay, I can be patient. Okay, so if anybody has any questions about that,
does anyone have any questions for Mr. Dewald? Because that is your primary concern, is this is section 6 of the agreement.
that is correct.
Okay.
I did get some more correspondence in the last week about a possible discussion on the encroachment, but I don't believe that this is the time or place for that as well. But I would entertain that I would be more than willing to sit down with a few members of the council, as well as somebody from the golf course and somebody from the waterworks department, so that we can get this resolved. Something I thought we would have been able to do in January, February, or March of this year. But I would like to sit down and get that resolved to a satisfactory conclusion to all parties involved.
Thank you for your approach to that, because we all want to get it resolved. But you're right, it is a separate matter from what's before us this evening.
Absolutely.
So,
thank you.
If you can be patient, I think you'll be satisfied with the outcome of this.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Anyone else here to speak on this matter? Okay. So, let's see, any discussion amongst council? Or amendments? Someone
You're on.
ready to make the amendment, Councilman Friel? Or Councilman Kathy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to move to amend the ordinance that the written subdivision agreement referenced within the ordinance be modified, deleting section 6 of said agreement.
Do I have a second?
So moved.
Okay, second, moved by Councilman Kathy and seconded by Councilman Pacheco. Any discussion of this amendment? Okay, please cast your vote on the amendment only. And please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, motion passed. Motion to amend passed.
Okay, are there any other amendments to this agreement? Is anyone on page 11?
Oh, sorry.
Or am I the only person on page 11?
Amy? Oh, sorry.
Okay, yeah, you were the only one.
We're behind you a little bit.
We'll have to mark this on the calendar.
You get a red star.
Okay. Councilman Pacheco.
I move to amend the ordinance to include the conditions amending section 3 as follows. Subject to the conditions below, the Dewald Divide Addition Subdivision Agreement is hereby approved and the mayor is hereby authorized and directed to execute and the city clerk to attest said document. Conditions: 1, the subdivision agreement surveying and the plat of the property shall be adjusted to conform to final judicial determination after all appeals are exhausted, or a final settlement of the complaint for declaratory judgment and quiet title complaint that is filed in the District Court, 7th Judicial District, State of Wyoming, County of Natrona. Caption is the City of Wyoming versus David Wayne Dewald, trustee of the David Dewald Reputable Trust, civil action number 107408. And 2, the city, by passage of this ordinance, does not waive any rights it had otherwise have in law or equity regarding the above-mentioned complaint.
Okay, discussion? Let's put that into plain English here. So,
Don't you need a second?
I'm sorry, let's get that done first, yes.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Lutz. Yes, thank you. So, discussion.
I'd like to know
So,
what
correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Henley, essentially what we're saying is that the survey will be adjusted as directed by court.
Yes, sir. Basically, it's just saying that you're not waiving anything by adopting the subdivision. You're not waiving your rights under the lawsuit that's pending.
Yeah, should it come to that. Yep. So the agreement does not prevent us from taking a legal step if we feel the need to do so.
That's correct.
Does that answer your question, sir? We're simply putting into the agreement that if it were to go to court, that this agreement would not supersede a decision by the court, that we would abide by the court's decision if it were to come to that. It's really stating the obvious.
Okay, no, that, I can live with that, because we can agree amongst ourselves where those boundaries will be in negotiation.
Yeah, and hopefully there will be no court action, but it just says that if it came to that, the agreement would not supersede the court, which is obvious, but we're just making that clear. And then we're not waiving our right to take legal action if we decide we need to.
No, I can live with that.
Okay. Did I say that properly, Mr. Henley?
I believe so, Your Honor. Basically, we've talked about the legal action and we filed it, but we've not served it yet. So I think that's correct.
Okay. And again, hopefully we'll come to an amicable decision before that, okay? Okay. Any other discussion on this matter? Please cast your vote. That's just on this amendment.
Motion,
Please record the vote.
with all voting aye, motion to amend passed.
Okay. Any other amendments? Okay, now, please cast your vote on the ordinance as amended. And please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, motion passed.
Thank you. Please read the ordinance on third reading by title only.
An ordinance amending the Casper Municipal Code pertaining to 30 and 40 mile per hour speed zones.
Chair would entertain a motion to approve on third reading the ordinance just read.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councilman Cathy, seconded by Councilman Friel. Council will now listen to public comment. Is anyone here to speak on speed limits this evening? Any discussion amongst council? I just drove down King Boulevard today, and I was looking forward to a 40 mile per hour speed limit sign. It's not quite there yet. So, any other discussion? Any amendments? Please.
Mayor?
Yes,
The
Councilman.
one thing that people do need to understand is even though this passes tonight, it does not take effect until the signs are changed on both Second and King Boulevard. So don't start driving 30 and 40 tomorrow. You still may get pulled over. So.
And I can vouch that that does in fact happen.
Oh, yeah.
So, please cast your vote, and please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, motion passed.
Thank you. Please read the ordinance on third reading by title only.
An ordinance amending the Casper Municipal Code pertaining to the salary of the mayor.
Chair would entertain a motion to approve on third reading the ordinance just read.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Friel, seconded by Councilman Hopkins.
No.
Did I get that?
No. Pacheco.
I'm sorry, Councilman Pacheco, excuse me.
Nope.
That would be bad.
That would be bad.
Council will now listen to public comment. Is anyone here to speak on the matter of the mayor's salary? Discussion amongst council.
Your Honor, I'm going to abstain from this vote.
Please cast your vote, and please record the vote.
With Councilman Bates voting nay, Councilman Friel abstaining, motion passed.
Thank you. Please read the ordinance on second reading by title only.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, may I just say one thing? It says here that I got to sign a subdivision agreement, so are you going to make me up a new one with the amendment in it that I can come down and
Yes,
sign?
yes. It will be written just the way we changed it tonight.
Okay.
So no, you do not need to sign that document.
So, and when might I expect that?
Mr. Hanley, before he leaves.
Perhaps we can have Craig give him a call when it's done. It shouldn't be long. It's an easy fix.
Okay, you bet. Okay. Let's see, where were we? Okay, please read the ordinance on second reading by title only.
An ordinance approving the city-initiated annexation of properties along the west side of South Poplar Street, south of West 50th Street, and the zoning of said properties as urban agriculture.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve on second reading the ordinance just read.
So moved.
Second. Moved by Councilman Huber, seconded by Councilman Bates. Council will now listen to public comment. Is anyone here to speak this evening on the annexation matter? Any discussion amongst council? Any amendments? Please cast your vote, and please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, motion passed.
Please read the ordinance on second reading by title only.
An ordinance approving the Fairgrounds Home Edition Number 2 subdivision agreement and the vacation of a portion of the Fairgrounds Home Edition and final plat of Fairgrounds Home Edition Number 2 comprising 2.17 acres, more or less.
Chair would entertain a motion to approve on second reading the ordinance just read.
So moved.
Second. Moved by Councilman Hopkins, seconded by Councilman Bates. Council will now listen to public comment. Is anyone here to speak on the Fairgrounds Home Edition? Any discussion amongst council? Amendments? Please cast your vote, and please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, motion passed.
Please read the ordinance on second reading by title only.
An ordinance approving the annexation, plat, and subdivision agreement for the Ely addition and zoning said addition R2, 1-unit residential.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve on second reading the ordinance just read.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Huber, seconded by Councilman Bates. Is anyone here to speak this evening on the Ely addition? Any discussion amongst council? Amendments? Please cast your vote, and please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, motion passed.
Mr. Henley, do we need to excuse Councilman Pacheco? I believe he's gone for the evening. Is there any process we need to go through? Okay, thank you. Please read the consent resolutions by title only.
Item 12A1, a feasibility study contract with 292 Design Group for the Casper Ice Multi-Sports Complex. Item 12A2, a utility adjustment agreement with the Wyoming Department of Transportation for the relocation of a sanitary sewer main. Item 12A3, accepting a right-of-way easement from James L. Allison as part of the Midwest Avenue reconstruction project. Item 12A4, authorizing an agreement with Wired Electric for the Casper Event Center arena floor lighting upgrades. Item 12A5, accepting a grant from the Wyoming Governor's Big Game License Coalition for wetlands construction and enhancement. Item 12A6, approving a contract with the Platte River Trails Trust for use of the optional 1% number 16 sales tax special projects funds. Item 12A7, establishing rates for retail and wholesale water and sewer service. Item 12A8, supporting the fundraising effort by the Tripany family for the purpose of expanding Fort Casper Museum. Item 12A9, regulating the operation of Highland Cemetery and establishing fees, services, and sales policies, rules, and regulations. Item 12A10, authorizing a real estate purchase agreement for the purchase of real property from the Imitate the Image Ministries. And item 12A11, establishing rates for residential and commercial solid waste collection, recycling, disposal fees at the Casper Solid Waste Facility.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to adopt the consent resolutions just read.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Friel, seconded by Councilwoman Lutz. Mr. City Manager, would you like to comment on any of these matters this evening?
No, thank you, sir.
Any abstentions or nay votes? Please cast your vote, and please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, motion passed.
Please read the consent minute action titles.
Item 13A1, authorizing the purchase of one new combination sewer jet and vac truck from Floyd's Truck Center. Item 13A2, authorizing the purchase of one new truck-mounted striping machine from Easy Liner. Item 13A3, authorizing the appointments of new members, Ms. Kirsten Ellis and Ms. Deb Clark, to the Downtown Development Authority Board of Directors. And item 13A4, authorizing the appointment of Rob Hurlis to the Amico Reuse Agreement Joint Powers Board.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent minute action agenda items just read.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman Lutz, seconded by Councilman Bates. Any abstentions or nay votes? Please cast your vote, and please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, motion passed.
And this being my final meeting as your mayor, appreciate the work all of you have done over the past year. It's been a pleasure. And let's go around the table. I guess I can't call on Councilman Pacheco, so we'll call on Councilman Hopkins.
Well, first of all, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to thank you for your efforts on your second time through as mayor. I think you've done a great job for us. And be glad you're staying on council for another year, but thanks for your efforts.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Cathy.
I would like to ditto that, and also I would like to let everybody know that on January the 25th, the Chamber of Commerce is having a crab feed to help sponsor and support several of the various organizations here in the city. And so if anybody is interested in eating crab, give the Chamber of Commerce a call, and the deadline is January 15th. There will be no at-the-door sales. They need an accurate head count to get the proper amount for the places bought.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Councilwoman Lutz?
Like all you can eat crab?
Do what?
I said, is it all you can eat crab?
Pretty much.
Anyways, just trying to make a joke.
I'll have all the crab I want.
They're gonna lose on that deal, huh?
Forever ago.
No, just everybody travel safe for the holidays if you happen to be traveling, and happy 2019 being over.
Okay, Councilman Bates.
Nothing other than Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to everyone.
Okay, Councilman Huber.
Mr. Mayor, I would just echo the thank you to you for all of your hard work. I really respect the way that you conduct the meetings and the nice calming influence that you have and everything, and I think that's really something to be commended in this day and age. Also, I've noted with interest I think it's the 75th anniversary of the Battle of the Bulge and the great heroics that those brave souls endured there so that we can all enjoy the freedoms that we do. And also, I would just wish a Merry Christmas to all and to all a good night, since we won't be here next week.
Thank you. Councilman Friel.
I'll echo what everybody said. You've done an outstanding job, and I look forward to trying to fill your shoes. We'll see how it goes. So.
You'll do great. Just a couple things for me, and thank you for your comments. It's been a pleasure. I was gratified to see that we're buying a striping machine, because I know that that's close to our city manager's heart. And want to bring to everyone's attention that we do have a local group that is going to start a fundraising effort to put an addition at Fort Casper Museum. And Councilman Cathy spoke very eloquently about private public division of responsibilities. And I think it's wonderful when we have a group of citizens who are passionate about an amenity in our community, who are willing to step up and take the lead on raising funds to improve that amenity so that we can display new collections and educate young people about our city's history, which this project will do. Rather than just come to the government and say, can you guys use tax money to take care of this? Now, we may in fact end up helping out, but that's a much more appropriate role for us than taking the lead or asking all of the citizens to take that responsibility on, when in fact we have people who are very passionate about that particular amenity. We've seen that with Hogadon, with the Friends of Hogadon, and they have stepped up to improve that facility. We've seen that with the Friends of the Library. We've seen that with many other projects and groups in our community, and it speaks well of our community that we have people who are willing to do so rather than expect us to take care of everything. So with that said, the next meetings of the City Council will be a regular council meeting to be held at 6 p.m. Tuesday, January 7th, 2019 in the council chambers, and a work session to be held at 4:30 p.m. Tuesday, January 14th, 2019 in the council's meeting room. Got to make sure I do this correctly. A notice of an executive session to take place at this date and during this meeting was given. We have a matter to discuss regarding land acquisition. Therefore, the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn into executive session, and at the conclusion of that executive session to reconvene this regular meeting solely for the purpose of adjournment of this regular meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Friel, seconded by Councilman Bates. There being a majority of members present and a motion to adjourn into an executive session having been moved and seconded, and that motion requiring a 2/3 majority of the council present, please cast your vote. And please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, motion passed.
A greater than 2/3 majority of the council present voted in favor of the motion. We are hereby adjourned to an executive session.
It doesn't specifically state that it's